But
Okay,
actually,
hold on. Before you do that, answer that question just
Okay.
first, and then we talk about that.
Right.
So what would it take to change your mind? Like, what reason would you have to hear? What evidence? What data point?
I can't think of anything particularly because men and women are so different. Would you have to mutilate the men so much that they could become, the bell curve overlaps so much that they really can compete equally? But that's mad, isn't it, to mutilate men down to a point where, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Mutilating them down to a point where they can compete on the same bell curve level as women. Well, why would you do that? So I guess that's all that could possibly allow men to compete in women's sports.
Okay. What would it take for you to move from strongly agree to agree?
Not much, but
Oh, really? Wow.
wait. I believe when allowing a trans person to compete in gendered sports, there is a degree of screening. So
A degree of what?
Screening.
Oh, screening,
So
okay.
essentially, they look at a person's hormone levels, whether they use steroids, sort of things like that, to basically decide whether or not they should be allowed to compete. And so I think if we got rid of that and we just went with, well, this person says that they are trans, whether they're on any sort of medication or whatever, we don't know, but they're trans, that would prompt me to not strongly agree.
My name is Nick Han, and I am the Education Partnerships Manager at FSU. And so that's a really fancy title for someone who basically goes around trying to encourage young people to consider free speech in terms of our culture, in terms of critical thinking, in terms of our democratic ethos. And so that is one of the reasons why I'm so incredibly proud that we could bring Dr. Peter Boghossian and his team all the way here from the United States. It's a long way to come, but we have tried to just roll out the red carpet and make them feel at home. And they have not disappointed us. They've been delivering some really amazing talks and interviews and content. And so we know that tonight you're not going to be disappointed. Would you please put your hands together for Peter Boghossian? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's going to be a fun evening. We're always trying different things. We're always experimenting and making new things. So we're trying something totally new tonight. So let's hope this works, because this is an experiment. Okay, Reed, what do we have here for the Minty meter? Okay, so we're going to go over climate. I'll tell you what we're going to do, but first we're going to look at the Minty meter. Go to the first slide so we can see. Yeah, what topics should we focus on? First place was hate speech, so that's interesting. I mentioned before, if it were an American audience, I think it would have been trans, hate speech, and Indigenous. That would be my guess. But we haven't done this here before, or in the US. And so here's what I'm going to try to do tonight. We'll look at the Minty meter, we'll see what people believe, and we'll take claims. And someone will come to the mic, and it'll just be for a few minutes if you want to. Remember, it's recorded. If you don't want to, no problem. And I'll facilitate a conversation between people who have opposing views. The goal of this is to show that people can have reasoned civil discourse, and hopefully it won't end in a bloodbath. But I don't think it will in New Zealand. I think everybody's pretty chill over here. So I'm going to try to test this with the first time we do this with a claim. So let's take out, what's the first claim here, Reed? Okay. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. So 69% of respondents said they strongly disagree. Anybody know where this comes from, by the way? Correct. Ibram X. Kendi, the uber best-selling author. This is a direct quotation. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. 15% disagree, slightly disagree, neutral, and then 2% strongly agree. So we'll just play with the first claim. I'll play with the first claim, and then the next claim we can bring people up. So ideally what we'd want is one person who strongly agrees and the other person who strongly disagrees. And then I'll ask the audience if they were persuaded by the quality of the reasons they heard. Okay, let's play the clip, Reed.
And social justice is the consummation of something called social equity, where Karl Marx believed in something called socialism that consummates to communism. We could define that as something like, I don't know, a administered political economy in which shares are adjusted so citizens are made equal. It just so happens that's the exact definition given in the public administration literature by George Fredrickson for social equity. And we don't even bother to take real steps towards social equity. We turn to Ibram Kendi. What does he say it takes to achieve social equity? In How to Be an Anti-Racist, on page 19, he says the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. And the only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination.
Okay, that was my writing partner, my primary writing partner, James Lindsay, in his talk at Oxford. Jim has an astonishing memory of pages, dates, really utterly remarkable. Come on in, we have plenty of seats. Come on in, make yourself home. This is a very casual environment. Okay. So I'm going to take up the claim the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination, and the only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. Come on in, make yourself at home. It's very casual over here. Okay. The basic idea is that in the past, I think we'd all agree, people were discriminated against. Before I go on, I'm not saying I believe or don't believe this. Actually, I don't believe this, but I'm trying to steel man or make a strong case for the claim. I would argue that it's incumbent upon us to make better reasons than the people with whom we attempt to engage and don't. I think that's what moves the engine of knowledge forward. Okay, so I think we'd all agree that there has been discrimination in the past. I think we'd all agree that there's actually been systems of discrimination that have been set up. In the United States, I can think of the idea of redlining or Jim Crow or systemically discriminating against people on the basis of their skin color. In the United States context, that would be African Americans. Here, I would imagine it would be Māori or other people who have come, indigenous or not. So the idea then is that because people were discriminated against in the past, they didn't have the opportunity to accumulate wealth. So generations of people, in this case white people, had the opportunity to earn money, invest money, put money in the bank, get money from savings, et cetera, and then they could use those financial resources to better their lives or their children, whereas indigenous peoples, for example, never had those economic opportunities. They were denied those. So their starting place was they were starting back. There's an interesting exercise, one step forward, 2 steps back. I've played with my class. You ask people questions and then they move along the line and you see the discrimination variables. So the only way to remediate that past discrimination is to discriminate against people in the present. What that usually means is a steeper graduated income tax on, for example, white people, or a white tax. And if you don't like the word white, we can make another word. People who, in the literature, they call participate in whiteness. So you can be a minority, I know it's pretty crazy, and still participate in whiteness. So that would be an example of an argument that one would make for the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. By the way, that line in his book was quoted so many times that he took it out of the next edition of his book. Okay, so what we will do is someone will make the best argument they can on one side, strongly agree or strongly disagree. Someone will make the best argument on the other side. I'll ask people what their reasons are. We'll hash it out for a few minutes, and then we'll see if that moved anybody, if those reasons changed their mind. Everybody clear so far? Clear as an unmuddied lake, clear as an azure sky. You know where that comes from? You know what movie that is? Nobody saw A Clockwork Orange. Wow, okay. You're all dead to me. All right, Reed, let's do the next one. Okay, hate speech should be illegal. So we have 7% of the people strongly agree and 53% of the people strongly disagree. So ideally, if you were one of those people, you would come to the mic. This will be the strongly agree. That will be the strongly disagree. Let's play a clip first.
Yeah, so what we did is there's two critical findings to what we've done over the last couple of months. So we'd heard that from trans community members that they'd experienced a rise in hate and harm after the visit of Posey Parker to Aotearoa, New Zealand. And so we wanted to look at our data and see if that was true in our data, to see what the evidence base was for that. And so what we did find was that there had been a substantial increase in harm and hate towards trans and non-binary people over the period middle of March to the middle of April, so over a month-long period, which coincided with Parker's visit. And really importantly, that increase was both in amount, so quantity of harmful and hateful content, but also in what we would call tone. So that's an elevated level of violence, an elevated level of harm. And some of the language that was used is language that we would call genocidal and that other researchers internationally classify as genocidal. So that's language that denies the right of a group of people to exist.
Wow.
That's a great way to end that clip. Okay, if you strongly agree and you want to have that conversation, you can come up here. If not, I'll take whatever side people don't come up to. If you strongly disagree, go to that side. Any takers? No takers. Well, maybe this experiment it didn't go as well as I thought it would. Come on up, sir. Yeah, give him a hand. Absolutely, give him a hand. What side do you want to be on?
I'll strongly disagree.
You strongly disagree? Anybody want to take the strongly agree side? Come on in. Come on in. Anybody want to take the strongly agree side?
I do bite.
Anybody? All right, I'll take the strongly agree side. Okay. So, hate speech should be illegal. Okay, what is your best, speak to the mic, what is your best argument for hate speech being illegal? Tell everybody.
So speech is a choice and it's a freedom that we all have. When we start monitoring it and assessing it, we lose the ability to be able to say things and we lose the ability to have the counter say to it as well. When you take that away, you take the freedom of people away. Without the freedom of people, you cannot grow as a society. You actually regenerate and lose your ability to be anywhere and to grow. And as a society, we want to grow, become a better place where we're more inclusive of people and better with people. It's the old story, if you take sun and you shine it on something, then it will grow or it will disinfect it. So any speech needs the sun on it to either grow or to be disinfected, depending on what it is.
Okay, so I will present, you can clap, you can clap. I'll get no applause read because I have an unpopular position, but that's okay. Here's my argument. Speech must be regulated, particularly hate speech, because if it's not, it can lead to some pretty horrific things. And I'll give a specific example. In Rwanda, the Tall Trees broadcast was encouraging people to genocide. And it's estimated, I think it was Bill Clinton in his book, in his autobiography, wrote that the worst decision, the worst mistake of his presidency was to not intervene in the genocide in Rwanda. And that was at least partially caused by the amplification of hate by radio stations. Now, we can cut back on the amplification of hate, we can cut back on genocide, we can cut back on all of it if we limit speech, particularly hate speech. Do you have a response, sir?
I do. That is a one-sided story. So what you have is you have a bunch of radio stations putting one point across, and there's no other person to be able to have the other side of that story. So as I say, the sun is not shone on that argument.
Okay, so if we have a bunch of homicidal maniacs telling everybody we should kill Maori or something insane, and then we have a bunch of other people who are sane, rational people telling them, oh no, don't kill Maori, just chill out a little bit. Do you think that those voices would be enough to quell the incitement to violence?
I don't have the answer to that, but I certainly hope so.
Would the risk of that be worth, civil war might be too extreme, but I don't know, the attack on an elementary school or the attack on a nursery school or the kidnap, murder, and rape of people?
I think that's a difficult question, and I also think that when you go down those lines, you are talking with people who you may or may not be able to herd in a different way. So what we're talking about is herding people into a form of thinking.
Okay, cool. You'll give your best argument for why you strongly disagree that hate speech should be illegal in one sentence, and then I'll give my best argument, and then we'll let everybody decide.
Okay, so that's
Oh,
tricky.
you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My best argument for why hate speech should be illegal is because it can lead to literally, okay, so just because I don't believe this, I think this is bullshit, but I'm just saying it.
Well, this isn't helping.
Right, okay, perfect. It's because I think it can, not necessarily, but it can definitely slip into violence, and actually people will die. That's my best argument.
So your belief is that hate speech can move from the verbal conversations between two people or groups of people to the point where they're actually physically attacking each other.
Yeah, I think it can move the Overton window. So, I'm just thinking about the rise of anti-Semitism now and how so many people are coming out screaming about the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is totally bogus, or whatever else they're screaming about. And my concern is that that would cause a rise. So I was just in New York, and pro-Palestinian supporters, pro-Hamas supporters actually, were standing outside a Jewish deli and screaming at people. And I mean, I don't believe this, but I'm claiming it because I'm standing here because nobody would come up. But we have to not allow that speech to take place, because all you would need is, especially in the U.S. where there are more guns than people, you just need one lunatic to have a gun and start going on a shooting spree. That's the best argument that I have.
Well, again, we believe that reasonable people are reasonable. What you're talking about is fringes of people. Reasonable people will sit and debate things. If you take the debate away, you've taken away the growth of a civilization and a people. And if you take that away, that's much more important to own and have than it is to lose. And it's very sad that people are, in my opinion, mentally ill, and there's other people taking those mentally ill people and using them as weapons. I think that it's a different story to take someone and use them as a weapon for your own personal or group way of creating something that's to push an agenda.
Cool. You know, the cool thing about having an event is you can pretty much do anything you want. So I'm going to do anything I want right now. Let's switch sides.
Switch sides? Oh, God.
Okay, so
I don't agree with
what's your best argument? Why do you strongly agree that hate speech should be illegal?
Because it's a way of controlling people, and when you can control people, you can make them safe and baby them and nanny them and make sure that they're all safe and well looked after. Sorry.
My arguments are that the umbrella of hate will continuously expand to when people are offended. And the only way that you can have a society that is capable of correcting its errors is if you have free speech. Free speech is something that's what I talked about in Auckland. Free speech is the ultimate error correction mechanism. Okay, cool. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. Anybody change their mind? Anybody change their mind on anything? Thank you, appreciate it. Anybody change their mind? All right, let's keep going, Reed. Let's do another one. Okay. People should be arrested for making offensive social media posts. Now, unless someone was trolling, we have 2% of the people on this who strongly agree, so I'm hoping that one of those will come to this side. If you strongly disagree, the 2% is still there. I thought they would change their mind. Okay, who wants to come up to the mic? One at a time, please, not all at once. One at a time, one at a time. I can't stand this rampant participation. All right, good, awesome, give them a hand. Okay, so we got, which mic are you going to? This one or the other one? Okay, people should be arrested. So you strongly agree. But we need someone on this, because I don't want to keep doing this. Who wants to be this? You? Oh, awesome. Come on up, man. Give him a hand. Good, good. Okay, and then we're going to look at that. Wasn't that nice? Everybody shook hands. See that? We can have free speech here. We're all civilized humans. All right, Reed, play the clip.
And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification arrests and so forth.
This is in relation to some comments that you made on a Facebook page.
You were witnesses saying, obviously, people Why are they over here, etc.? We let them into our country, etc.
A woman has been arrested by Cheshire Police in relation to inaccurate information on social media.
If someone has been caused, obviously, anxiety based upon your social media post. That's
not his.
why you've been arrested.
In Russia last year, 400 people were arrested for things that they said on social media. How many people do you think were arrested in Britain for things they said on social media last year? Take a guess.
I have no idea.
3,300.
Really? Arrested for what they'd said on social media?
Yeah.
My goodness.
In Britain.
Okay, now we all know how the game is played. You're going to give your best argument for why you strongly agree that people should be arrested for making offensive social media posts. You have 60 seconds.
So I'm not familiar with the precise example of the posts people have made to be arrested, and I can almost guarantee that 3,299 of those arrests were probably gross and should have been left alone. But imagine I got some AI footage or even found a picture of a child and it was a naked child, and I added some AI of somebody raping that child, and then I posted it on social media. So that's the most extreme example I can think of. I think there are super extreme examples where it would warrant an arrest. The problem is we don't trust our governments, and nor should we, because they can take this tool of, hey, that's bad, now we're totally in control. So it's the length we take.
So that's your argument. So your argument is, but that's illegal for other things, but that's your argument. We can't have a complete laissez-faire because people will post
not because people will, but at the very margin, people will post heinous things.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. All right. You have 60 seconds to reply to that, sir.
Well, I'd say in the first instance, obviously, if it's dependent on the previous question, if hate speech is not illegal, then you've already got a foundation for the fact that social media is part of your freedom of expression, and you should be able to post whatever you want without being intimidated, and that censorship of social media posts does repress the general beliefs people have in the rest of society. Specifically, though, to what I'd call an exceptional case like that, obviously there's existing laws against, maybe not quite what you described, but if the initial image is real, we do have other laws that cover those highly exceptional things. So we still have some ways of dealing with the extremes that go far beyond what most people would consider to be covered by free speech.
Okay.
And you would say that those existing rules about those type of images, if they were posted to social media, would warrant an arrest?
If someone was posting child porn or something, yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Okay. What is your best argument for why you strongly disagree? Tell him and tell everybody.
Best argument for why I strongly disagree?
Yeah.
Social media should be censored? Strongly disagree?
Yeah.
Well, freedom of expression. Ultimately, society is better off knowing or being able to have people who want to know their views being known, and it harms both not only the speaker but also the hearer when ideas are repressed. And on social media, that's one of the great ways of getting ideas out there into everyone.
You have a comment on that? You have a rebuttal or criticism or an agreement?
Sure, I agree with that in almost all cases, but as they said in Austin Powers, now we have freedom and responsibility. And so we can enjoy that freedom only if in those extreme cases that we've got enough controls to make it a safe place to be able to share all those things. And that should be a very, very wide net, but it shouldn't go to the complete outreaches of human depravity.
Okay, switch sides. All right, I'm going to give you first word since he went last. So you're now strongly agreeing. What's your best argument you have in one or two sentences? No more than that.
Well, in the case where someone is legitimately posting something like CP or whatever, then I think there should be a method to take that down. But I don't, in the first instance, I'd hope that that would be done through a social media company just having their own standards and enforcing their own standards.
Okay, and one or two sentences, what is the best argument that you can come up with for that position?
For strongly disagreeing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So throughout society, we've successfully ostracised the heinous people, and that is enough to kind of find the path forward. We don't need an external authority with guns and the power of an entire economy behind them to come at some rogue individual. We can do that as a community.
Okay, cool. Give him a hand. Give everybody a hand. Anybody change their mind or cause them to think about something they hadn't previously thought about? One? Yeah, say it and then I'll, go ahead. There's a real risk of destroying what? Oh, humor, yeah. Yeah, ideologues they have no sense of humor. So I don't know, I hope sometimes I think I'm funny, maybe that means I'm actually not funny, but hopefully I'm not an ideologue. Okay, Reed, let's do the next claim. Reed came up with this one, I love this one. Telling Indigenous trans people how to live is wrong. Telling Indigenous trans people how to live is wrong. And then let's just do these. 13% strongly disagree, 23% strongly agree. Ooh, now that is interesting. I think that's really interesting because I don't think that people who are, you know what the word trolling means? Are just like screwing with the system. I think that we have 23%, at least 20% who believe that. So this should be really good. Okay, Reed, play the clip.
I officially came out properly maybe 2 years ago at Christmas time, and all they've ever said is that they want me to be safe.
The diminishing results were disappointing.
See?
It's just getting my own head around the transition that he's making. But
my dad, I love him, but he's still struggling with the pronouns.
It's about what he thinks, so as long as he's happy and he knows he's going in that right direction, we'll support him 100%.
All I could think was, you put yourself in that situation by coming to a place and telling trans people how to live their lives. But also on top of that, your message wasn't just trans people, it was Indigenous trans people. And I'm an Indigenous trans woman. You cannot tell me that my existence and my own culture is wrong because I am from a long line of Indigenous trans people, and we know our place on the marae, we know our places.
Okay, now this requires an extraordinary bravery to come up. Who would like to try this? Nobody. Come on there, New Zealand. Yeah, we got one. Awesome. Are you going to go on strongly disagree, or are you going to go on strongly agree? You're confused. I think I'm confused too. I think everybody is confused. Yeah, go ahead. If you're here, you'd be strongly agreeing.
I agree that it's wrong to tell trans people how to live. Indigenous. Sorry, am I agreeing with that or disagreeing with it?
So you are strongly agreeing that telling Indigenous trans people how to live is wrong?
No.
Okay. Okay. I know they're going to make me stand over there. Who wants to try to argue that one? One at a time, please. Oh my gosh, we actually got one. Come on down. Awesome. Give her a super duper round of applause. Awesome. Good for you. This is really wonderful. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to make the best argument you can, and then you're going to have a chance to rebut her, and then vice versa, and then we'll go from there.
I think, firstly, it's a very broad claim, but I think in the sense of telling anybody how to live, that could be things like their values, how they take care of their health, how they treat people, those kinds of things. I think it really depends on who the person is that's telling them how they should live. But I'm assuming that it's someone who is not Indigenous or trans. I think that they obviously have a right to say what they think, but they don't have a right to control what Indigenous trans people do with their lives because they don't understand what it's like to be in that position, and often the values and the beliefs that that an Indigenous person is raised with will be ingrained in their culture and in their history and in how their family and everyone thinks they should live, and so it would go against like everything that they are to
Okay,
to
all right.
them.
So not did you agree, but did you understand her claim?
Yes.
Okay, can you repeat back to her claim and you see if it's correct?
That Indigenous people have, they may be trans and Indigenous and non-trans and non-Indigenous people can't understand the way they're living their life.
Is that correct?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, cool. Can you tell her your best argument for why you're on strongly disagree? And I'm going to ask you the same question, not if you agree, but if you understand, okay?
Because I think that being trans is culturally bound, and there are cultures that have different understandings of being trans and cultures that don't recognise trans at all. I think when people are living in a society, we all have to get along and have rules that don't uphold certain groups or certain identities as more important or subject to different rules than other people.
Okay, same thing. Did you not agree, but did you understand?
Yes,
Can you
yeah.
repeat back to her?
So are you essentially saying like that the way that an Indigenous trans person lives is sort of just as valid as the way that someone who isn't Indigenous and trans would live because, you know, they have different beliefs as well?
I think it depends on, when we talk about how they live, it depends what they're doing by how they live. So if they're just using clothing that suits them and they're using ethnic clothing that suits them, then I don't have a problem with that. If they are doing something like, for example, I think this sort of compares to female genital mutilation. If you're in New Zealand, that is illegal. Whether you're a Muslim and you believe that and it's culturally bound or not, it's like we have laws against those things. And I think trans is sort of kind of similar. It's like, okay, there's one law for everybody in this country and we're all supposed to follow these rules. And if you're doing things outside of those, you shouldn't be like, be able to claim on your culture or something special to get a higher status.
Okay, now, new question. So remember these, so I'm slowly escalating, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm slowly escalating. This is something that you can use in your conversations. It's a very, very useful, very, very easy thing to say. If you're having a conversation that's sticky or about controversial issues. Now, everybody here is very chill, but sometimes people get heated. So try to remember this verbatim. What would it take you to change your mind, not entirely, but to change your mind from strongly agree to agree? And what would it take for you to change your mind? What facts, what evidence, what data, what reason? What would it take to change your mind from you're now on a strongly agree for you merely to disagree? Okay, for you, I'll ask you, what would it take to change your mind from strongly agreeing with that claim to just agreeing?
I think definitely what specifically are we telling trans Indigenous people to change about the way they live, and who is telling them that? You know, how much information do they have? Because depending on what it is, like you said, with genital mutilation, that's something where you kind of need to consider a bit more than just, you know, how they're living.
Okay.
So.
Is what it would take her to change her mind, is that reasonable? Is the thing she said, do you think that's reasonable?
Oh, sorry, could you repeat it?
Basically just if it was more specific about what we are telling Indigenous trans people. For example, genital mutilation is not okay. We won't let you do that.
I think
that's reasonable.
I think how to live is very, very broad, and we're not sure what we're what exactly we're talking about. So I'm sort of thinking.
So it would depend. So that would cause her to change her mind, and you're saying that is a reasonable thing, like what we would tell them. I mean, would we? I don't know. Would we tell them to like? I don't know, like floss 3 times? I mean, it would depend on what we would tell them.
Yes.
It'd be a funny thing to
yes.
tell the Indigenous trans community that you have to floss 3 times a day as
Yes,
some
I mean,
kind of
yes.
governmental edict. Okay.
I personally, can I just say, I think, yes, it would be wrong if a non-trans, non-Indigenous person said to a trans person, you're off to hell, I want you to set all your culture aside
Right,
and completely
okay.
radically change your life, you need to turn your life over to Jesus. So I think that would be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
agree
what would it
with that.
take for you to change your mind from strongly disagree to disagree?
I think maybe if we knew the parameters of what we're talking about, how to live. Because I mean, we're talking about using female toilets, are we talking about Indigenous trans women having the absolute right to be in women's weightlifting competitions, or are we talking about the right for them to use makeup? I mean, I think we need the how to live bit, I think is...
So that's interesting, because the condition that would it take for both of you to change your mind is identical.
Is what, sorry?
It's identical. It's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
You both change
Yeah.
your mind depending on what you were telling them.
Yes.
Cool. All right, give him a hand. Give him a round of applause. All right. That was good. That was fun. Okay. Reed, what's the next one? So, thanks to the Free Speech Union, when we do this stuff, I try to find, and Reed and I meet about this, we try to find those claims that we think that people have trouble talking about or they don't feel comfortable talking about. And again, one of the points of this evening is to give people some tips, tools, and tricks for how to do this. Now, everybody here seems pretty relaxed, but if this were to escalate, I'll give you some techniques and tips. And again, these things don't always work, so if you ever feel unsafe, just basically walk away and walk toward a group. But I mean, I do this constantly. I've had people here salute me, scream at me, do every conceivable thing, but fortunately, I have not been assaulted or shot yet. So I put that in the win category. Okay, Indigenous ways of knowing are just as good as Western ways of knowing. Indigenous ways of knowing are just as good as Western ways of knowing. 27% of the people strongly disagree with that, and 6% of the people strongly agree with that. That's where we're looking. Interestingly, 20% of the people are neutral. So we're going to do something different this time. If you're neutral and you want to do this, come on down. Yep, you want to come down? You want to come on down? No, just one? All right. If you're either strongly agree or strongly disagree and you want to come on down, come on down. Okay, Reed, play the clip, please.
And that's the thing, is that other ways of being and knowing, and Indigenous ways of being and knowing, and with the cosmovision of understanding that the non-visible world is also credible, that it needs to be seen as equivocal. It needs to be seen as in addition to Western medicine, and that they genuinely work together, and that it's not snubbed away, and certain things are not snubbed away, and that they are credible. And
There we go. Okay, which are you strongly agreeing or strongly disagreeing? Where are you?
Strongly disagreeing.
Okay, let me look at the claim again. Indigenous ways of knowing are just as good as Western ways of knowing. And you're neutral, right? Yeah. Okay. Your job is to present the best reasons you can to him. Your job is to listen to those reasons, see if they make sense for you to go from neutral to slightly disagree. See if they make sense. Is what he says, is his reasoning sufficient to cause you to revise your beliefs? You have 60 seconds, sir.
Over thousands of years, the Western scientific method has been developed, and the scientific method relies on empirical evidence as a way of performing a hypothesis and testing it to make sure.
Talk to him. Hello? No, he's right here. Oh, no, this event is awesome. Woo! Thank you. Have a good day. Here we go. Okay, go ahead.
It was just my alarm clock.
My pants on fire.
So sorry about that. So over thousands of years, the empirical method has been developed, and it's a way of testing a hypothesis and proving or disproving with evidence to see whether it stacks up or not. And it's worked, and we have based civilization, and we've flown people to the moon based on it, allegedly, but probably.
Okay, is that the best argument you have?
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any questions about that for him? Speaking to the mic, speaking to the mic.
Define empirical, and when you say thousands of years, is it any of that based on any Indigenous knowing?
So empirical is observable evidence, and so there's things that you can observe with your senses, or if you can create instruments to measure and test and see things to be able to create evidence to be able to back things up. And the second part of your question, I think Western is probably an area where it could get a little bit controversial. So to claim that the entire scientific method is based on Western is probably a little bit too far. But probably since the Renaissance, most of the scientific effort weight has been going from that side of things, possibly.
Okay. What would you need to hear to change your mind? Like, what data or evidence or facts could he give you that would nudge you ever so slightly from the neutral to the slightly disagree?
I would probably have to see more proof that we're at a more knowing state now than societies have been, whether it's Chinese medicine or Greek mathematics or philosophy, that we've come further now than examples historically can show us.
Okay, without giving him examples, did you understand the claim?
Yes.
Is what he said a reasonable thing to do before he considers to change his mind? Is having that evidence reasonable?
This is a reasonable thing to ask for.
Okay. Can you provide him with that evidence?
I point to the current state of technology and...
Tell him.
Yeah, so the world we live in today is the most technologically advanced civilization we've ever lived in, and that's based on the convergence of all of those minds thinking together over time.
Can you give 2 examples?
So you've got Einstein, theory of general relativity. You've got Stephen Hawking working out the nature of black holes and Hawking radiation.
Okay. Is that sufficient to change your mind? Or would you need something else or something more?
Being neutral, I could probably be relatively easily swayed, but I would probably come back to the fundamentals. As a society, are we happier and do we function better through the advancements we've
But that's
made?
different from what you said before.
Well, does it help us knowing what a black hole is? I don't know.
Are we happier because we possess the knowledge of what happens inside of a black hole or the copulation life of frogs?
So
are we happier knowing this?
If you're generalizing to knowing in a deeper, wider sense, then that's probably something that I would move that way towards, because I would agree with you that science is a one-dimensional way of looking at the world, and perhaps if you're thinking about knowing in a wider sense, then that might be an argument to push back the other way. So I would go that way slightly if you're expanding the definition of what knowing is to a kind of more holistic way of thinking.
Yeah, the question is, you're correct, the question is as good as. It might be different, but his claim was, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to mischaracterize your position, how are we better off, are we happier if we know these things? Is that the claim?
Generally, has it made society a more functional place, a better place to live?
And your response to that was?
I've got a better response. But
Go ahead, what's your response?
Well, if we look at the levels of absolute poverty over time, the level of absolute poverty over time has dramatically decreased over the past 100 years.
And that's good because it takes people out of a life of immiseration and suffering. And
Yes.
your argument, I don't want to put words in your mouth now, or anybody's mouth, I'm trying to understand this. Your argument is that scientific ways of knowing are better?
Scientific ways of knowing have led to the development of science and technology that has enabled us to create the tools and the machinery to enable people to come out of absolute poverty.
Is that sufficient?
It could pull me further to that side. But
what?
I think there's definitely room for both. To say Indigenous is just as good as Western ways, I think there's too many argumentative points.
What would Indigenous ways of knowing be just as good as?
You could use perhaps Chinese medicine as opposed to modern pharmaceuticals. You could look to the foundation of where a lot of these sciences started, and a lot of what hasn't changed out of the stars.
Do you accept that about Chinese medicine?
I think if you are struggling to prove that it makes a difference through an empirical method, then it's in danger of actually selling false hope to people in the belief that what you're doing is going to help them, when in fact it might just be a placebo.
I think there's plenty of Western examples of false hope.
Exactly, I agree too.
Which is a major problem.
Cool. All right, cool. Let's do this. Give him a hand. Give him a round of applause.
Yeah.
Super good job. It's not hard. It's not easy to do that, and it's certainly not easy to do that before an audience, and it's certainly not easy to do that with a camera on you. So that's really good. Seriously, that's like really, really good. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. All right. I don't know. Who wants to do? Is this straight from the Mentimeter? Who wants to do this one? One person. One person. But you and me would be like down here debating these issues. Only one person. All right. Let's just see if we can flip through this real quick. Trans women and women strongly disagree, slightly disagree, neutral, slightly agree. Interesting in the distribution, we're mostly strongly disagree and strongly agree. So anybody want to do the strongly agree?
Come on, I'm just a little old lady.
Well, we had you before. Anybody else? All right, come on up there, son. Go, give me a hand. That's great, because when you're 58, you can call everybody son, so that's good. Okay, so we're going to do something totally different now.
Oh.
Think to yourself, in a single sentence, what is the best reason you have for believing that? Don't say it. Don't say it. Just think it. I don't know why I did that. You think, put it in your head, the best reason you have for believing that, but don't say it. Crystallize it in a sentence. And when you have it, let me know. You have it? Do you have it?
I think so.
Okay. I want you to try to guess what his reason is. And all I'm looking for from you is yes or no. And then I'm going to ask you to guess her reason, and all I'm looking for you is identical, to just guess yes or no. So you're going to be the first guesser. What is the best reason he has for strongly agreeing that trans women are women?
Because they feel like it.
Close.
Is that true?
Very close.
Close, but it's not good enough.
Not quite, but very
Okay.
close.
I'll give you two more guesses.
They get very sad if they can't, if they're not accepted as women.
No, you're getting further away with that one.
Okay. Are any of the reasons
it
she
is-
gave so far better than the
Yeah,
reasons you have?
The first one is closer to the one that I was thinking.
But is it better than the reason you were thinking?
No.
Okay. This is your final guess. But don't stress out because there's literally nothing at
Okay.
stake.
Because they have a lady brain.
I like that one.
They have a what brain?
A lady brain.
Oh, a lady brain. Oh, okay. Like they're born in the wrong body.
Yeah, that
Okay.
one.
Is
yeah.
it because they have a lady, they're born in the wrong body? Like the gendered soul, maybe? Way to look at it?
I'm happy to accept that as,
Oh.
as an argument. It's a good argument, but it's not what it's certainly not what I was thinking. I'm not sure I'd accept it as being better than I
Okay.
was thinking.
What was the best reason you had for believing that?
Closer to the first one, because the person believes that is what they are.
So because the person believes what they are, that's why you're standing on the strongly agree.
Indeed.
Okay. Now it's your turn. What is, you still have the sentence in your head, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Take a guess, first guess.
Because there are two sexes with different genetic chromosomal makeups.
Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
Is it enough to say, yes, it's correct?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay, can you tell him your reason?
There are only two sexes, female and male. No one has ever changed sex. and it's and impossible to do so. And even if a person takes cross-sex hormones, they do not change their sex.
Okay. Not do you agree with her, but do you understand the argument?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What response do you have to that argument?
It is incorrect to assume that there is something as fundamental as truth. And in this case, truth is what the person feels it to be. And therefore, if they are identifying as being a male when they're not born that way, and if they're identifying as a female and not born that way, it is what they believe they are. That is, in fact, reality.
Okay. Not do you agree, but do you understand the claim?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree?
No.
Why?
Because how they feel, as he said, it might be their reality, but it is not biological reality.
And you believe that the way to adjudicate questions is through biology and not ideology, or biology and not feelings? Is that?
Say that again?
Like the way to figure out what's true is through the sciences, in this case through biology and not through belief and opinion. Did I get that right? I don't want to mischaracterize.
Fundamentally, yes.
Okay. What is your response to that?
We allow people to change how they look all the time. People are allowed to change. People change their hair color. People change how they look through plastic surgery. Nobody is held to the biological reality of their hair color or their visage. Therefore, one's gender should not be different.
Do you have a comment?
Yes, a person's appearance doesn't change their sex.
Okay. So this is a really good example of, you know those, when people get divorced, they say incommensurable differences. So this is a really great, so the trans issue, among all issues that we've done, we go literally around the world and we do this. This is the one issue where we find these incommensurable differences. So the first order of business, I would say, is what one of Thomas Jefferson's dictums. People disagree. Oh, well, I wouldn't think that's a reason to lose a friendship over in the context of a friendship. In the context of social policy, it's very different. So how do we figure out what laws we can make when we have people who have vastly different, they're incommensurable, like seas of oceans between those people? I'll talk about that if we have time at the very end. Give them a hand. Good job. Good job. I noticed something organic and holistic happen here. Did anybody else notice it? I didn't tell anybody to shake hands. I didn't say it once. Everybody seems to have. You're Kiwis. Okay. Well, good for you. This is a good, safe place then. It's funny, when I go around the world, when I do events in the United States, I have we have people with guns and shields. I have multiple police officers. I have security details. I can't walk in. I can't even go to the bathroom. I have to have someone in virtually the stall with me. It's kind of crazy. I come here. It's very chill. Everybody's. It's very nice. It's very relieving. Okay. All right, Reed. We had a good one. We were at the airport, and Reed said to me, "We should do." He said, "What are they called? The people in the security? What are they called? TSA? Do they call that TSA here? What do they call that? Security. Reed said it's all theater, and I said, well, we should totally do one of these with the TSA should be abolished. Because you would have people with incredibly strong opinions about that and try to facilitate that conversation, I think would be super interesting. It's funny, what people will become upset about. Well, you know what our most common claim is when we go around? This is really true. You know what our most common claim is when we go around and do this? I can tell you, I actually have the video evidence to prove it. You know what it is? We ask people what they want to talk about. The number one claim that we get, aliens. The number two claim is anything trans-related. So, and I don't think we've had a single person who's ever been upset about aliens. No one's ever upset about it. They have vastly different opinions about alien visitations, kidnappings. Okay, trans women should be allowed in women's sports. This is one of the things that if I did in the United States, I'd really have to step behind a plastic bulletproof shield. Who wants to do the strongly disagree and who wants to do the strongly agree? Which one do you want to do? You want to disagree? Which one do you want to do? You want to do the disagree? Okay, come on up and you go on that side. Who wants to do, yeah, give her a hand. Who wants to do the strongly agree? There are 3% of you in here, unless you're trolling, so there's got to be at least 3 people. No, is that right? Did I do that math right? Don't ask me. I can't. It's truly terrible. No, that would only be true if there were 100 people. I don't ask me. Terrible at math. Who wants to do the other one? Strongly agree. Oh, good. Good. Come on down. Oh, we have a return customer. Wonderful. Wonderful for a return. I like that. Okay. I'm going to do something a little different. I've hoodwinked you down to come down. Okay, swap sides right from the get-go. That's okay. This is where it gets fun now. Trans women should be allowed in women's sports. You're going to strongly agree, and you're going to strongly disagree. Are you cool?
Yep.
Are you cool? You're not going to have a heart attack on me? Okay. Okay. So, what do you think the best argument for someone standing there would be? Tell her.
That trans women are not women biologically.
Do you think that would be the best argument that one would have? No. Okay. What do you think the best argument for someone standing there would have?
That they believe that they are.
In the mic.
They believe that they are women and so should compete in the women's field.
Do you think that someone standing there would say that? Would that be accurate?
Not good enough.
Okay. What is the best argument that you can present, the best thing in a single sentence for why someone would be on the strongly agree? So like you can crystallize it, you can move it down, you got a little feedback. What's the best argument someone would give for trans women should be allowed in women's sports? Why would someone be on strongly agree in one sentence?
Not just because they think that they're a woman, so need the opportunity to compete. And so because they believe they're a woman, they should compete in the women's field. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowed possibly to compete at all because they couldn't possibly compete in the men's field.
Okay. What is the best reason someone would have? You got a little feedback. You can think about it for a second. The best reason for trans women should be allowed in women's sports that someone would strongly disagree in 1 or 2 sentences. What would that be?
Because men and women are genetically very different and have very different hormone levels. And for example, if a trans woman taking estrogen were to still have very high levels of testosterone, they would have an advantage in women's sports that would be unfair against a cis woman.
Okay. Did any of those arguments cause anybody to change their mind? No. Okay. We'll try one more, just one more. What do you think the second best argument? So we now have the best argument. What would the next best, because usually people don't believe things for one reason. They believe things for a whole bunch of reasons. Personal experience, something they read, something their culture believes, whatever. What's the next best argument you think someone would make who was standing there?
I think because it would defeat the purpose of having men's versus women's sports or adults versus children's sports if we blur the lines between who is what based on what they believe or what they think is right.
Oh, wow, so people like that one. Wow, did you like that one more than number 1? Oh, wow, that was really interesting. So that's why we did 2. What would be the next best argument you think someone would have? Again, people don't almost never believe for one. There's a suite of data and such reasons that people that aggregate into belief. What's the next best argument you have?
I don't know that they have another argument. It's not just that they want to compete against women because they like beating them. Maybe that's the one. They like competing against women because they like beating them.
Okay. Oh, people like that too. Wow, okay. Was that, did you like the second one better than the first one for her as well?
It was funnier.
That's super interesting to me. That's really, really interesting. Wow. Okay. What would it take to change people's minds here? Let's start with you. So we know, so let's go switch sides. So switch sides, so walk over. So you've heard the best side from the other position, the best arguments, the two of the best. So what would it take to move you one line over, to one gradient of belief over? What would that take for you? Tell her, tell them.
Why to change her mind as
Yeah, so what would it take you to move from strongly agree to agree, and what would it take you from move to strongly disagree to disagree? Like what would you, because now you're on the lines you actually disagree. Now you're the places you, so what would you need to hear to change your mind? Just from strongly disagree to disagree.
Can I just change the subject a little bit, because I don't think any of her opinions are actually anything to do with sport, and that's the problem. The idea is that it's not equal, but
Okay,
actually...
hold on. Before you do that, answer that question just
Okay.
first, and then we talk about that.
Right.
So what would it take to change your mind? Like what reason would you have to hear? What evidence? What data point?
I can't think of anything particularly, because men and women are so different. Would you have to mutilate the men so much that they could become, the bell curve overlaps so much that they really can compete equally? But that's mad, isn't it, to mutilate men down to a point where, I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Mutilating them down to a point where they can compete on the same bell curve level as women. Well, why would you do that? So I guess that's all that could possibly allow men to compete in women's sports.
Okay. What would it take for you to move from strongly agree to agree?
Not much, but
Oh, really? Wow.
Wait. I believe when allowing a trans person to compete in gendered sports, there is a degree of screening. So
A degree of what?
Screening.
Oh, screening,
So
okay.
essentially, they look at a person's hormone levels, whether they use steroids, sort of things like that, to basically decide whether or not they should be allowed to compete. And so I think if we got rid of that and we just went with, well, this person says that they are trans, whether they're on any sort of medication or whatever, we don't know, but they're trans, that would prompt me to not strongly agree.
Okay, cool. So your arguments before was correct. Usually people make the case that it's not about fairness, it's about the definition of woman and who we take into the category. Okay, good. Give him a round of applause. Look, everybody's shaking hands. That's awesome. Okay. All right, so this is the cool thing about having your own event. This could be, we just experiment all the time with these. This could be a total failure. I have absolutely no idea, but we're gonna try something new for the next claim. This is a good one. One of the things that people have trouble talking about is race. Race, indigeneity, trans status. The United States, this is probably one of the biggest things that people not only they feel they can't talk about, but this is one of the biggest barriers to free speech, is that the claim is that you only want free speech so you can say the N-word. You only want to have free speech so you can insult minorities. You only want to have free speech. So the idea from the best-selling author, Robin DiAngelo, is racism is the ordinary and everyday state of affairs. So we have an entire architecture that's predicated upon taking away speech rights precisely because of the race issue. I don't think that's the same in New Zealand, but this is an extremely important issue in the United States. Okay, America is racist. 24% strongly disagree, 29% disagree, all the way to, let's change that. Yeah. I was literally just gonna say that. Because we have a video for America's Racist, but we won't play that. You want to do New Zealand is racist? Yeah, let's do that one. All right, who feels strongly that New Zealand is racist? All right, or who either strongly agrees or agrees that New Zealand is racist? Literally nobody? You want to come down to good, awesome. Which side do you want to be on? Give him a hand. This is hard to do. Which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the strongly agree? Yeah, I'll be on the strongly agree. Okay, who wants to be on the strongly disagree? You want to come down? Come on down. Give him a hand. Okay, now here are my questions to the audience. Let's see how closely people have been paying attention. 5 minutes? Okay. What are some things that one can do to facilitate a conversation like this? without people freaking out and going crazy. This is the title of my last book, How to Have Impossible Conversations. What's one thing that we can ask right from the get-go? Yeah, you can ask to define the words. What do you mean by racism? Often, one of the problems you find in these conversations is that they're like two ships passing in the night and people talk past each other. So what is racism? What's another thing you can do that I did? Yeah, what's another thing you can do? Excellent. You can define the parameter and the scope of the claim. So you can say, well, what do you mean? Like everybody is racist? Because do you remember that previous one we had where the people agreed upon the reasons for what would change their mind? That was super interesting to me. So often we can quell the idea that we should limit speech if you can figure out that people are on the same page. For example, everybody wants to, it's called a superordinate identity. We need to match things so that we find commonalities among us. Yeah, do you have couple things? Oh, how is it measured? Okay, so how is it measured? So these are questions before we even get into the claim. Yeah, great. Are we making an absolute claim? Is New Zealand more racist than Zimbabwe or Syria or something? Good, yeah. Good. Can you, because so racism has been redefined or attempts to redefine as power plus privilege. Can anyone be racist, or do you have to be a specific race to be racist? Do you have to have the power? Do you have to have not power? If you're a white farm owner in Zimbabwe, can you be racist against black people? Yeah, you had one? Yeah, is there anything entailed in racism that means different treatment on the basis of an individual stereotype? Okay, cool. Is there an issue that I see as something different? So let's do something different for this one. We're not going to use the first question of what's your best argument. We're not going to switch sides. We're not going to ask you to repeat back to him what you think you heard. We're not going to ask what would it take to change your mind. We're only going to look at this claim very specifically is what is the best definition of racism? Because often you'll find before you'll talk about a fundamental claim, you have to talk about a proximal claim. So let's do this. Give your best definition of racism.
Here we go. I'd say racism is, by an elongated definition, is probably the minimization of someone under the specific auspices of their race. It's so hard to define without using the word race, but
It's judging someone. This is what I think you're saying. Correct me. Judging somebody negatively,
yes,
on the basis of a stereotype of their race. Judging an individual on the basis of their race. Is that it?
Of the characteristics is. Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's super tricky.
Yeah.
Since this isn't a debate, do you want to have?
I was almost agreeing.
You agree or disagree?
I'd go generalising.
Go to the mic. Speak to the mic.
So generalising negatively or positively on someone's race.
Yeah,
I believe
I'd
is
agree with that. So
racism.
yeah, negatively and positively.
Oh, okay. So positively. Explain positively.
Well, it is in terms
Asians
of,
are good at math. That's an example.
Yeah, there you go. In terms of a race being wealthier and easier able to generate wealth, people may look at that as a positive thing.
Okay. So do you agree upon the definition of race?
I'd say so.
Okay.
Oh,
Now let's
say your definition again.
Do you agree upon the definition of race? What is the definition of race in one sentence? Racism.
To me, it'll be either the positive or negative discrimination based upon the race of a particular individual.
Okay. Now let's go to the New Zealand. What would we need to figure out if New Zealand was racist? How would you figure that out now that you have a definition?
Who has more privileges than the other based on their race?
What if the privileges were earned from, like, I don't know, striving culturally? Like, what if you have a culture that promotes hard work?
Privileges gained by their race, is that what you said? Was what racism would be based on in New Zealand?
Yes, but I guess it's specific privileges as well.
But what happens when someone's viewed negatively because of their race?
Trying to understand the premise of the question actually again.
So what if, like, if we're trying to figure out if New Zealand was racist? Okay, this is a great, I don't want to say trick, but this is a great strategy. You ask people to put things on a scale. What do you think the most racist country on earth is? On one of them.
I'd go South Africa, Zimbabwe,
Okay.
China.
So let's say Zimbabwe is a 9 on a 1 to 10. Where is New Zealand?
3.
I'd go at the moment maybe a 5.
Okay.
7? 6 or
That's
7?
fascinating. You see what happens when you put it on the scale? You were on strongly agree or strongly disagree?
Disagree.
You were on strongly disagree, but the degree of difference was incredibly small. But it just seemed like that there was a gulf. But there wasn't really a gulf. It's the difference between 3 and what? Did you say 5?
Yeah, I'll go 6. I'll go 6. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'll go
okay.
6. I'll sit on 6.
Okay, you said a 6. Okay. What was New Zealand, if New Zealand is a 6 now, what was New Zealand 50 years ago?
I don't know my New Zealand history.
Okay, I don't know is a great answer.
Probably about an 8.
So if
My
you
opinion.
think New Zealand is a 3 now, what was it 50 years ago?
Yeah, probably about an 8.
Okay, so
Maybe a
that
7 or an 8, yeah.
the moral arc is bending then toward less racism.
Yes.
Okay, now let's take a look at the initial claim. New Zealand is racist. You were strongly agree. Where are you now?
I still certainly strongly agree.
Okay, and the reason you strongly agree is because it's over what number?
Because of where I sit on the scale.
Yeah, like why are you?
Just personal experience and the way that I see the legal system at the moment.
If you thought New Zealand was a 3, would you still be on strongly agree?
In terms of if New Zealand was on...
If, what did we say, South Africa is a 9?
Yeah.
And you believe now that New Zealand is a 5. If you believed New Zealand was a 3, would you be on strongly agree?
Probably not, no.
Okay, so then you've calibrated correctly your reasons for why you're standing there. Okay. Where are you now? You were on strongly disagree. Where are you now? Are you the same or different?
Hovering in between strongly disagree and disagree.
What caused you to lower that confidence? What caused you to recalibrate?
Funnily enough, it depends on which race you look at it from. So, for example, I'm part Māori. Only like 1/32, so it's hardly anything. Like, what is that, 3% or something? But I think this is still the case in New Zealand that before the age of 20, if you are of Māori descent or you identify as Māori, you get basically guaranteed university acceptance. So you don't have to get UE at a secondary level.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think the disagreement is with him? Where do you think that the gulf is? Because that's a pretty big gulf. Where is the gulf? Oh, I love that chart. Now that's good, Reed. Good. Where do you think the disagreement with him is?
As a specific example?
Yeah, like why are you on opposite sides of the spectrum? Why does one person strongly agree and the other person strongly disagree? You can take a guess at that too if you want to take a stab at it.
Why do people strongly...
Yeah, why do you think that he's on the other side? Because I don't know about your perspective. From my vantage point, it seems that you guys are incredibly close. Like if you had said it's a 9 and you had said it's a 2, I'd say, okay.
Yeah.
What do you think the disagreement is between you?
I say it's probably who is higher on the totem pole.
Because you think it goes, you think the racism flows down, like white Maori. You think Maori
Yeah.
can be racist against white people?
Absolutely.
Do you think so?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. I'm percolating. Give me a hand.
That was hard.
Okay, a few things. So I did anybody else think that they were closer? You did? A lot of heads. You a lot of heads. Did anybody think that they were farther apart? Oh, you do? Why do you think they were farther apart? But that's actually my point. They were a third apart, but yet on the Likert scale, they were as far apart as you could go. So it would seem to me that they should have been like they only slightly disagreed with each other. They didn't strongly disagree with each other. All right, cool. So I wanna just, sorry, everybody's telling me we have to wrap it up, sorry. So I just wanna punch home a few very quick deliverables. If you look at many of the reasons against free speech, those are, it will cause conflict, people will freak out at each other, it will cause violence, it will cause racism. Racists just want to use this to hurt other people. People want to use free speech to take away the rights of other people. It's always in the interest of the stronger party, to use this Derek Bell's argument, this is Kimberly Crenshaw's argument, the founder of intersectionality. I don't think any of those arguments are true. I think people are completely capable of calm, rational civil discourse, but I just think that it's extraordinarily helpful if people have some of the tools to do so. When they have the tools, do you have the expression here, it takes the wind out of your sails? Yeah, it takes the wind out of the sails of people who are claiming that free speech necessarily leads to violence or genocide. That's one of the big things we hear when we do the trans issue are, you have to limit people's speech because it's gonna lead to a genocide. There's just simply no evidence for that. Wilfred Riley wrote a wonderful book called Hate Crimes Hoax. So I want to come back and recenter it and say there are some very specific things you can do. I'm going to repeat those. I know we have to wrap it up. So you can ask people what they believe, why they believe it. You can ask them to put their belief on a scale. How strong do they feel about one thing or another? You can repeat the claim back to someone to make sure that you understand. Ideally, in those situations, what you're looking for is that's right, but if they say no, then you try to ask them, put the burden of understanding on yourself. Don't say, is this what you mean? Say, did I understand that correctly? Did I get that right? Am I understanding what you're saying? The other thing you can do is, when you're in these kinds of conversations, some of these things, particularly true around religious beliefs, you really want to define the terms. You really want to define racism. You want to define faith. Up until very, very recently, it was the faith was a big divide, and people like Serrano's Piss Christ when he took the crucifix and he put it in urine, and there was a big uproar about that. There was a vast movement in the United States to limit speech, and I wouldn't call that speech. I would call that expression. So I do think it is possible to have these conversations. I don't think it's particularly difficult. Now, I will admit that the sample size here, everybody who is going to be in this crowd in the first place is more likely to be civil, but it's definitely possible. Okay, everybody's telling me that I have to wrap it up, but I just want to, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for coming. I hope you take home some practical skills, some tools. All of the arguments that we found against freedom of speech, I think you've just seen here today that it's totally possible for people to disagree with each other in a civil way. Thanks.